Good evening, everybody, and happy Halloween. This is Fire Up Michigan. My name is Scott Morganroth, appropriately named the Motor City Madmouth. I'd have my crew with me on a Halloween night. Of course, Mother Nature tricked the World Series because it's been postponed. It will not be taking place until tomorrow, so I don't have to compete against that. I'll have to just compete with the folks out in Ohio, where Cincinnati Bengals are taking
Can
on
still do it.
Browns. With that said, we have a good lineup today. We'll be talking about the Michigan
Can't see.
Wolverines win over Michigan State, and yes, we know a man who is appropriately dressed for Halloween, and that's our pal here, Dom. All right, Dom. I don't know what kind of a costume you have, but let me give everybody an overview. Talk about the Michigan Wolverines and Michigan State game, Miami and the Lions, time permitting. We'll talk about the Pistons. With that said, Dom, tell me what that is.
It is. It apparently it's a ski mask. When I bought it, I had it for 3 or 4 years, and somebody was like, "Hey, did you know that's also a mask?" I said, "I did not." So it's a mask and a hat.
All right,
Good
well,
times. It's Halloween.
there you go.
Just trying to be festive.
I haven't participated
My,
in that in about 50
my
years.
original plan, well, my plan at like 2 this afternoon was, man, I wish I had more components of a Santa costume so I could sit on the porch dressed up like Santa and not give
Oh,
kids candy unless they said it's Christmas.
oh, that's fun.
This is Halloween.
Yeah, well, this is Halloween. Smoking
And
Jeremy.
then wear a Halloween costume on Christmas and sit on the porch and just shout from the porch like, nobody wants any candy? Isn't it Halloween?
You're a dork. I like it.
Well, you called him a dork. You called Smoking Jeremy. Welcome
Hey,
back.
listen, from 1999 until 3 years ago, I would not have been on the show because I'd be at a concert. But we don't do that anymore because it's $125. So instead, I paid $112 to go last night.
All right. Well, with that said, Jeremy, welcome back to the big show. Michigan.
Thank you very much, sir.
And last but not least, my co-host many moons ago, 40 plus years, George Eichhorn. Welcome back, pal.
Good to be here, and happy Halloween to all our listeners and viewers.
It was great. It was also great seeing you for the couple hours that we did have up in Michigan.
Absolutely.
And Will Vogel pops in and says, "Hi, guys."
I will.
All right. Well, gonna have
Whiz
you,
Kid
looking
Will.
forward to having you on tomorrow night. So, all right. With that said, let's get to business here. The Michigan Wolverines defeated Michigan State 29-7. First, we're going to talk about the game, and then the thing we're going to talk about next is the tunnel. I know the penalties and repercussions are going to they're going to get ugly.
They've already started. They started yesterday. 4 of the first 4 you've seen walking away from the guy in the video, they have already been suspended. They're saying there will be more to come.
So, all right. So, Jeremy, with that said, give me your thoughts about the game itself.
The game itself went as I predicted. I knew they'd win by 20 plus points. I just didn't know if it would be past the 21.5, and boom, it got there.
Okay. So, George.
Well, the only thing I didn't like as a Michigan supporter is the fact that you had to settle for 5 field goals. You know, red zone. JJ's he's got to deliver. That's not a good sign. I don't think it is when you play teams like Ohio State. And if you should get past Ohio State in the Big Ten title game, and if you should get past that in the NCAA Final Four, all I'm saying is, yeah, they won. They did won over by 22 points, but they should have put more points on the board than they did. I expected far, far more points than 29. But again, a win is a win, and it is a cross-state rival. So there's a lot to be said for that.
I want to add one more thing. You say that, but Ohio State has a worse red zone defense than Michigan State does this year.
Well, we'll see what happens.
And Tom's like, yes, they do.
Yeah.
That's the one thing Michigan State's been good about. They give up their yards in bunches. If you hit a guy on a 30-yard pass, he's getting a touchdown. But if you get inside that 25, for some reason, they're able to shut people down. That being said, Jake Moody is looking like the second best kicker in America right now in college football.
Oh, he's a Lou Groza winner from a year ago. He might win it again.
I'm gonna tell
2
you,
years in a row.
let me tell you, the Carolina Panthers could have used him yesterday in that loss to the Atlanta Falcons. That's for sure. I mean, you had a guy that had a 48-yard extra point attempt. I understand that was a tough kick to make. Don't tell me about the one in overtime that was very makeable. With that said, Mr. L waited for Halloween with that disguise that he calls. Give me your evaluation of the Wolverines game, and then after that, we're going to go around the horn here and talk about the tunnel.
Well, first of all, to George's point, if all those ifs were fifths, then I would be at the hospital with alcohol poisoning, for one. For two, the last I saw the line was it went from like 22.5 to 23, so I think State covered. But I mean, that's up to the minute things. But my main point on this is, and it's crazy because this is the first time in my life since 1997 where I've said Michigan looks like they might be a legitimate national title contender. But if you're only going to beat a 500 team at home by 22 points, it makes me a little nervous. And at this point, the rivalry means more to Michigan than Michigan State, which is just sad. But that's it. I didn't see a snap of the game. I don't watch college football.
And that's true.
Anyone that thought Michigan State was going to be anything better than what they are right now is foolish. Either the fans or the detractors. Their whole team got drafted by the Seattle Seahawks, and now he's the 2-1 favorite to win the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, right. No, I know.
Peyton Thorne, he's not that guy. And they've been so banged up, and like Jeremy said, they give up those chunk plays. Somehow they buckle down in the red zone, but it's like if they keep ending up in the red zone, they're going to score at least sometimes. Like, how about don't let them get into the red zone? It's like it's a whole team of Benny Blades. Like, let him catch it so I can just slobber knock him.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. There's no question. Kenneth Walker III. You talked about that last week. This kid's a stud, man.
He's for real.
You're
right.
Scott.
He's for real, Scott.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One thing I do want to add, for the first time since Mike Hart has any Michigan running back ran for more than 170 yards against Michigan State.
Good stat. Very good stat. Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, the last time Mike Hart ran for more than 170, it was 216. So Blake Corum's second on the list.
On 58 carries, just like Corum.
Corum didn't have that many. He didn't have that many.
Yeah, I mean,
Michigan running backs get a bunch of carries and get a bunch of yards and average like 5.5, maybe 6 for their whole career. You know what 6 yards is? 6 NCAA yards is in the NFL? It's about 3.2.
Yeah, the only thing
I'm not worried about that right now
is the Wolverines are taking care of business, beating everybody on their schedule, whether it's
right
or not. It doesn't matter. There ain't no, and
I'm rooting for them. I really am.
Oh,
it was 177 on 33 carries there, sir, at 5.4 yards and a touchdown.
5 points, so not even 6.
Yeah,
okay.
I am pro Wolverines on this. I really am. I don't mind Michigan State, but
I'm rooting for them. Like I said, first time this century.
Yeah,
I really am.
Better late than never, I guess. Yeah. But I like J.J. McCarthy. Cade McNown, to me, could very well have a pro career as well. You might have Michigan quarterbacks that wind up in the pros. Right, with that, so, by all means, the Wolverines, all I could say on Saturdays, they took care of business, and the Spartans didn't like losing on the field, which allows me to segue to our next topic, and that being the tunnel. All right, Jeremy, why the Spartans, those 4 players and whoever else participated in the situation goes beyond my wildest imagination. So raise up the lack of sportsmanship and class exhibited by the Spartans.
I'm flabbergasted. I've watched the video. The guy was walking by. Somebody from Michigan State said something. He turned his head. Next thing you know, it was a melee. The rumor, or what has been said, is that was one of the injured defensive backs that got hurt like in the second quarter, stayed out to support the team and root for the team. And he was going back to get his phone to film the team celebration out on the field. And it's a travesty that happened, and I'm glad that the guy that led the charge, Tank Brown, was one of the first ones listed as suspended. That being said, it should have never happened in the first place. That tunnel, it's never been an issue for over 100 years till this year, and it's been Penn State. Now it's been Michigan State. I don't know what they got to do to tighten up security to make it happen, but something needs to happen to protect the kids. It doesn't matter what team it's from. That should never happen with good sportsmanship.
No, it really shouldn't. George?
Well, I agree. And Jeremy, you got a good point there. You know, we've had that tunnel for so many years, 100 whatever years. But anyways, I'm not going to look at security and police in a tight situation like that as much as I am the coaches to control their players. It's unacceptable. The behavior is unacceptable. Commissioner Warren was in the stands, and I think the U of M handled it the right way. Now, some people are saying, oh, U of M is being high and mighty. Come on, cut that crap out. It was even if the kid said something, we don't even know if he said anything to aggravate the situation. But you're right. I mean, he was just coming through to get back onto the field and never made it, obviously, after being attacked. It's a bad situation. Coach Tucker, MSU looks really bad on this one. They've got to clean their act up. They can't have this kind of violent behavior. And you're right. I mean, there's got to be a different way to do that traffic in that tunnel. One team at a time. I don't know what you don't want to hold one team up. I know on the field, but there's going to be no other way to do it unless they put the officials in the middle of it. And I don't think they want to do that. The Big Ten doesn't want their officials, on-field officials, to have to battle crap like that. But it was very disrespectful of MSU, very violent. I'm sorry, they have to be held accountable, and they are going to be held accountable.
All right, before I turn it over to Dom, folks, subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel or visit www.southfloridatribune.com. And to advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. So, and also if you want to follow me on Twitter, do so at Tribune South. With that said, I'll turn it over to Dom. Size this one up.
I thought about it and I realized what it is. And like, regardless of how you feel about the internet and social media, I bet you the last time, if ever this was a problem before, I bet you it may have been somewhat of a problem in 1997. The reason it's a problem right now is because Penn State, like I'm not excusing or forgiving or anything like that, but what a shock that the first time since 1997 when Michigan keeps proving that they look like real contenders and now they're getting in scuffles with Penn State players in the locker room. As far as the Michigan State players, I don't understand it. Like, yeah, they're bitter, but mainly they're like, oh man, these guys are for real. Let's start a fist fight in the tunnel.
Yeah.
Not saying it's okay. I'm just saying it stands to reason.
And before you give your opinion, Scott, Will Vogel said my uncle played hockey at Michigan.
Well, I'll tell you, they could have used his hockey stick to swat away a few Spartans.
It's an issue in the tunnel because tempers are volatile because Michigan is, like I said, and this is me saying this, Michigan is an actual contender. Penn State and Michigan State players are not happy about that.
Yeah, well, the only thing I will say, the only thing I could really say, George, you made it a good point, and I'm going to feed off of that, okay, is I think they should just go separate at a time if it really comes down to it. I really do. I mean, that's the only thing we enforce.
Whatever happens for the rest of the year. Is the Ohio State game, is that at the Shoe or the House?
Yes, it's at the Shoe.
Okay, so what about the Illinois game?
I believe that's in Illinois as well because last year Illinois was at Michigan.
There will be no more incidents in the tunnel. There will be no more incidents in the tunnel again unless they happen to be contenders next year, or it'll be another 25 years. And then there will be incidents in the tunnel again.
They're not going to just whitewash this. They're going to do something about it.
No.
They'll do something about it.
Well, I'm just saying.
Well, like I said,
incidents will not arise again anytime soon for a variety of reasons, mainly because they'll control the situation. But the real reason is like I said, Penn State, Michigan State players, they're mad because Michigan's actually a contender for the first time this millennium.
I don't know. What
I'd be
about
mad
last?
too.
They
Well,
were
I wouldn't
contender
start a
last
fight,
year too,
but
Tom.
I'd be
It
mad.
didn't-
Well, I will say is Mel Tucker did not wait for Monday. He did this yesterday on October 30th when
Right.
he suspended the athletes Tank Brown, Kerry Crump, Angelo Cross, and Zion Young. That was the first four that was throwing punches, kicking, and everything else. I
He
mean, that
did it.
kid, he did it yesterday.
Yep.
And it was first thing in the morning. It actually, I got that news before the Lions game even started.
Yep.
Yeah, but here's let me just say this much, okay? And then I want to talk about the Lions. You know, when you
Do we
put this
have
whole
to?
thing in perspective, okay, when charges become filed and the legal system starts to take control over what we're doing here, okay, then you might see some wake up calls that, hey, you know, you kids could be in a heap of trouble and have to deal with the legal issues. And we'll see how the Big Ten, like said Warren, handles so. Once charges get filed, lawsuits are there. Well, I'd like to hope and pray that the legal system will become a deterrent.
This just came across my feed. Michigan defensive back Gemon Green to press charges against Michigan State players. That's the kid who got his nose broke in the melee.
There you go. So let's see how that goes. So we have to chart. So now, all right, now that we've talked about the Wolverines, let's talk about the Detroit Lions. Miami 31, Lions 27. I'll get into the Dolphins in a moment, but I'm going to ask you each and every one separate question. Doesn't have to be a long answer, but a very concise quality one. Is Dan Campbell over his head? Should he be the head coach of the Lions? Jeremy?
Yes, he has the players wanting to play for him. We saw the fire and intensity throughout the first half, but for some reason they went conservative and changed the play calling in the second half and lost the lead.
Okay, George?
I would think that he is over his head, but let's let this season ride out. Let's see if they can come up with any kind of momentum or any kind of streak here, and to see if he can certainly get a few more wins under his belt. I would say bring him back for year 3.
Okay, well, bear in mind the Lions offense got shut out in the second half, and I'll get into Miami numbers, which are impressive in their own right. So with that said, Dom, question, is he over his head?
He looks like he's in over his head, but I want to give him the rest of the year. If he can't get to at least 5 or 6 wins, then get rid of him. But it looks like it, but I don't know. It's just so hard to say. I mean, look how much better the defense got once we got a little bit healthier.
Okay. Well, I definitely do believe the man is over his head. I really, really do. And of course, the desperation showed when he let Aubrey Pleasant go today. So let's talk about that coaching situation. Jeremy, give me your thoughts about Aubrey not feeling very pleasant on Halloween.
Aubrey Pleasant, all you got to do is look at Jeff Okuda and you can tell what type of coach he is. He has been working one-on-one with him for 2 straight off seasons, and Jeff Okuda looks miles better than anybody could have predicted he'd look this year. And I think his play may suffer because of it.
Okay.
I think Aaron Glenn should have been the one moved out, but that's just me.
Yeah, I thought
wasn't going to do it, though. We talked about it, Jeremy.
Yeah, I know.
Those fire coaches.
I wish he'd have demoted him, made him the defensive backs coach, and promoted Aubrey Pleasant. That's what I wanted to have happen.
Can't do that either. That's like when they took the play calling duties away from Lynn but didn't fire him.
Right.
If you're going to take a guy, if you're going to decrease his job responsibilities considerably, just effing fire him.
Okay. George?
Well, I think he felt pressured that being Campbell to make a move. Sheila was involved this past week with her comments, and I think it was a situation where, God, I got to do something here. I'm to save face, to save my job. I'm not sure what all went around to it, but I take a look at the Detroit Tigers. Okay, that terrible hitting they had all year long, and even they, and a brilliant manager on most people, AJ Hinch, didn't even fire his hitting coach, at least until the end of the season. They waited. I agree with you, Jeremy. I think it was not a bold move. I think it was a cowardly move, and they're trying to pin the blame on somebody right now as much as they can.
Yeah, you know what? I'm with you, George. You make a coaching hire, they'll say it was an accumulation of over 7 weeks period of time. Here's a team that was on hard knocks and they have the worst defense. But I think that Glenn should own as much of that responsibility as Aubrey Pleasant. And there was a scapegoat. So let's talk about it from the Miami side. Okay. Tua Tagovailoa, 382 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interception. His passer rating hit about 80%. If that wasn't enough, and I get the media releases from the Dolphins as well. Tyreek Hill, 12 for 188 yards. Jalen Waddle, 8 for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. Mike Gesicki, 3 for 38 and 1 touchdown. So, hey, you know what? Tua picked the Lions apart. They couldn't score in the second half. But Jeremy, let's talk about it from the other side. How do you rate Tua Tagovailoa? Here's a guy that suffered a concussion protocol a while. He walked into Ford Field and maximized his targets as well as anybody could.
I mean, he did what he could do. He did it effectively. He manipulated the pocket well, got away from pressure repeatedly. I mean, athletic quarterbacks have done that to Detroit all year. And why they refuse to put a spy, which I put 100% on Aaron Glenn because that's like football 101 on a mobile quarterback, makes about as much sense as wiping your butt then going to take the crap.
Oh, jeez. Okay. I like your interesting analogies, Jeremy. Okay. I don't think George Eichhorn can top that one, but
it's gonna, I tell you what, Tua looked good. He didn't have the best first half. The Lions had their domination kind of going in the first half and then fell apart. That's a whole nother issue. But I mean, Miami looks tough, and boy, oh boy, you let some receivers go crazy like they let the Miami receivers go crazy, and Tua just you got to do something. You got to cover the guy somehow. Like you said, a spy on him. You got to do something to try to stop those mobile quarterbacks. And it is a continuing pattern. And like you said, Jeremy, that Detroit can't do that. They can't deal with these guys, except, again, Murray last year in the Arizona game. But other than that, the Lions have a pattern of letting these guys go crazy. And this guy was pinpoint accurate, especially in that second half.
Yeah, Tua's getting better with every year. I know for a while when they brought him in. And what I noticed about the game was obviously Brian Flores couldn't connect with him, but I love the job Mike McDaniel's doing with him. You value your quarterback, and it's your goal to bring guys up, not tear them down. And I got the feeling that's what Brian Flores was doing. That's why
Flores didn't want him. Flores wanted Justin Herbert.
Exactly. Well, that doesn't help either. Good point. But Mike McDaniel's done an outstanding job building Tua up. More power to him. It's good when you have that kind of communication between the head coach and your quarterback, because that's what you need, let alone the fact that McDaniel is an offensive mind. So, but Tua's developed. I think the only concern anybody really has is can he stay on the field for an entire season, because injury problems have plagued him. But if you get 15 to 17 games out of Tua and he continues to develop as time goes on, which most quarterbacks will fail early because they have a very bad offensive coach and the system doesn't cater to them. Tua is one of those quarterbacks in that draft class that stands a chance to be one of the best. With that said, I'll turn it over to Dom. What's your thoughts about Tua?
Well, I'm ashamed of both Jeremy and George for calling Tua mobile. I mean, he's not immobile, but he's not mobile. He's left-handed deck. Did you see the play when he had to reach back and almost tore every muscle in his rib cage trying to throw a ball 40 yards and it went like 37 yards and wobbled and was incomplete? Just like that deep ball he threw to Tyreek Hill and he had to come back for it. Just like the deep ball that Goff threw to Raymond and he had to come back for it.
Otherwise, it was a touchdown on both cases.
Right. Exactly. The
difference is Goff didn't have to throw it with every single muscle in his body. Tua did.
You saw him go, and then it wobbled just to get it 40 yards. I mean, that wasn't a wounded duck, but that was a tired duck.
Tired wounded duck.
He still won the game.
He
Yep,
did.
He did. Everything.
I don't know
said
what
about
happened.
Tua-
Other than 90% of the losses that I've watched since 1991. You know what transcends every regime for my whole Lions football watching career, other than about 6 games since 1991? We don't play frigging 60 minutes.
Right.
Mhm.
We were outgunning that high-powered offense for a whole half.
We had 72 yards at the half in rushing. We ended the game with 82 yards rushing.
Oh,
What does that tell you?
Swift
And only 1 sack, so you can't say it was all because of Goff, because Goff gained more yards.
Swift only played about 20 snaps, and he had about 8 or 9 touches.
yeah, they're being very cautious with Swift.
As
And
you
I
should.
don't blame them.
The man's made out of balsa wood.
Yeah.
Much like Kerryon Johnson's knees, but Swift his whole body.
I was watching the CBS halftime show, and Nate Burleson, he's pro-Lion all the way. He really is, and Bill Cowher. And they all said,
red suit,
pardon me?
the red suit he was wearing.
Mhm.
Nate Burleson, very natty dresser.
More power to him, though. He's pro-Lion, no matter what you have to say. And Cowher and Burleson say, the Lions look good that first set. They just need to finish and close the game out. Unfortunately, they didn't.
How many times have we heard that?
Yeah, probably more than you have to. But I'll tell you one thing I do have time to incorporate in the show. And the thought of Barry Sanders getting a statue outside of Ford Field.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
About time. About
Can't
time.
wait. One of my buddies got to meet him this weekend. I was so jealous. I would 100% fangirl if I met Barry. Like, trip over my words. I promise you.
Well,
The man's a god. Not the god, but a god.
You know what? The Lions have not been the best of honoring their alumni, but they're getting better at it, obviously. Scott, you've covered them for many, many years. You know this. There's guys, okay, there's no statue for Doak Walker. There's no statue for Bobby Lane. There's no statue for Joe Schmidt. Okay, but you're going to give one to Sanders, but people can relate to Barry. Barry's a great guy and obviously one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in NFL history. And I'm so happy that announcement was made during alumni weekend, alumni game for the Lions. It's well deserved, and obviously the Tigers are way ahead. The Red Wings are way ahead with the statues, and it's about time the Lions got one.
Yeah, I will add to
Absolutely.
this.
Will Vogel says, "Where's the Night Train statue? Where's the Lem Barney statue?
There you go. 2 more.
Where's Charlie Sanders? Where's Alex Karras?
Okay.
At least give us the Roaring 20s.
Let me go ahead and mention a few things. Number one, I work with Barry Sanders covering the team during his prime, so that's item number one. And number two, when George and I worked over at WXYZ Sports Talk, I had the good fortune of working with Dick Night Train Lane over at the State Fairgrounds, screening the calls to make sure they get to them. So great point, Will Vogel, and looking forward to having you on tomorrow night. So I just wanted to brought it in. I'm glad that Barry's going to get it, rightfully so. I do want to mention one last thing about the Dolphins Lions. Tyreek Hill, this guy has a chance to get 2,000 yards at the rate he's going, and I know Kelvin Johnson came close. So we'll see if Tyreek Hill can get it. But you know what? This guy's a heck of a player.
On a better team.
Would you want to have to deal with this two-headed monster with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle? Not me. These guys are good.
They are powerful.
A lot better.
Those two had
he was going to gash us worse than he did, but we couldn't stop. I want to go back and watch the game and see who was on who for all those catches. But I mean, it's Tyreek Hill. He's good. Yeah, especially in open space. It's not like he's outrunning dudes for bombs.
Yeah.
He doesn't have Patrick Mahomes anymore. So he's actually running halfway decent routes and just getting the ball in space. And he's very hard to catch, as cheetahs are. And Jalen realized that he's on 2 legs, very fast still. Track star.
He's a real stud, that's for sure.
Track star.
Tua was 29 of 36, and Goff was 27 of 37. 321 yards for Goff. Looks like 282. Or no, 382 for Tua.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not blaming Goff.
No, Goff.
No, it wasn't Goff.
And we won the turnover battle.
Well,
we had one less. Wait, we did. They had a fumble loss. We had no turnovers whatsoever.
I was referring to that. All I'm going to tell you is the Miami Dolphins, and I looked at one of their media releases, and the coach was asked about the penalty situation. Boy, I couldn't believe this team racking up penalties they would.
They had 7 penalties
eventually they got
accepted
evened
for
out.
55 yards, and we declined 7 of them because we had better yards off of the plays. So that was a total of 14 penalties in that game.
Yep. Way too many.
Every time you see that, though, it always evens out.
Yeah.
We had 6 penalties, and 4 of them declined, so we were less undisciplined than what Miami was.
Less undisciplined. That's what it is. About 3 holding penalties in a row.
This is one of those situations
I know.
where I see it from both sides. That Miami's been very undisciplined. That's our Achilles heel. And they were fortunate to get a win because, hey, let's face it, Raheem Mostert, I think, got a rushing touchdown. But
Dallas was the most penalized team until this week. Miami was like, hold my beer.
Yeah.
The other key stat I want to say is they had 107 rushing yards, and I already mentioned the 82. They had 7.4 yards per play. We had 6.9. They had 27 first downs. We had 22. They were 75% on third down efficiency. We were just under 50%, which is a drastic improvement from the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, it is, but it's still not enough to win.
No, it's not enough to win.
Well, regardless, the Lions.
Why we watch the games every week. Detroit Lions finding new and interesting ways to lose week after week.
You can spin those stats any way you want. It was still an L.
I love this team.
I love our team too. The only
L.
good thing I can say is they did not give up a point in the fourth quarter. That's it. They didn't give up.
That is amazing.
Here's the end result. Okay, the end result: the Lions are 1-6, the Dolphins are 5-3.
I understand that. That's not what I was getting at. I'm just saying statistically, this was one of their better games of the season, minus the rushing.
Tank for trade down.
Hey, listen, this is a very entertaining game, no matter how it turned out. It really was.
That's why we watch.
Right.
Number one, NFL says it's an entertainment industry.
They're always. I almost never don't have fun watching the Lions, other than when we get blown out.
Yeah, I mean, watching a goose egg get put up kind of sucks.
Just snatching defeat from the jaws of victory since 1955.
Yeah.
57.
And by the way, on my birthday in 57, December 29th. Okay, just thought I'd throw that out there for you Lions historians. All right. You know what? We do have a little time to touch on this subject, and that's what we're going to do. You know, the Detroit Pistons put 5 players in double figures in their 128-114 win over the Golden State Warriors.
How?
I know.
This is this team.
Over to Little Caesars Arena. So, all right, George, give me your take on the Pistons beating the Warriors.
This is not unusual. The Pistons have done this before in the past several years, even with 20-some wins on a year. They'll come in there and they'll be gangbusters and beat one of the best teams in the league. This is nothing unusual. You got to remember, these teams like Detroit are gunning. They're the world champions. They're gunning for Golden State. Remember how the Red Wings had that target on their back all those years when they had to play these teams? And, oh, my God, it'd be the lowly Vancouver Canucks or the lowly Minnesota Stars or whoever it was that beat the Red Wings. So this kind of stuff does happen. Taking nothing away at all. I mean, you got 5 guys in double figures. 4 of those, like you said, Scott, were over 20 points each. Cade went crazy. I mean, you know, they had a great game. The crowd was behind him. I wasn't there, but I know it was a raucous crowd. You're beating the Golden State Warriors. Come on. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
Will Vogel makes a good point about them, too. He says that the Hornets beat the Warriors the day before. So that's kind of a slide for them.
And a tough back-to-back. Right, Jeremy. Golden State was on a tough back-to-back. So I give the Pistons credit, but, we hope that that's a sign of things to come. But, again, it happens all the time.
That's where we're at. It's, woo, isn't that pretty?
Yeah.
But you know what?
It's that Lions win against Arizona last year. And it really just makes you – it really, at the end of the day, kind of makes you mad. Because it's like, oh, this is what you're capable of?
Right.
But it is the NBA. And what it is we shot 42% from 3. They shot 31. typically we mostly
Did Curry
die.
not play?
No, Klay Thompson. So there's your 17, 18 points. He plays, we lose by 7 or 8. That's why. I just went and
That's
looked,
right.
and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
Klay
that's a
Thompson
good
didn't
point.
play. That's why we won.
Good point.
Yeah, well, good point.
Yeah, we did. It's the one time we lived by the
said,
3.
Kudos to them being a young team in the middle of a rebuild, winning against a team they shouldn't have beat.
Right.
It's no different than when we beat the Lakers the first year we had Killian Hayes. It's no different than when we beat the other team. We beat the Knicks. That was an up-and-coming playoff team that year. I mean, we do this every year. We have teams that are mid to low bottom feeders, and they overachieve and beat teams they shouldn't. Every team does that. Who's going to be the one that Houston beats? Is it going to be the Raiders?
Guys are suspended or guys are load managing.
And look at our friend.
Like I said, if anything, it's frustrating.
Look at our friend in the chat room. Hornets, like you said, also beat the Warriors the day before.
Did they play any defense? Maybe that's why we won. Because normally we don't play defense. That's why we don't win.
Yeah,
or
but
we chuck up 53 pointers and shoot 32%.
Well,
kudos to the guys.
Welcome to the
5
new
guys
NBA.
in double digits.
Yeah, right.
Great job.
It's
4
it's
guys
college
over 20.
Great. With a deeper 3-point line and better shooters.
Well, George, I got news for you. The one thing I'm really glad is when I go on Basket Bros, I feel like I'm living in the era that I thought the NBA flourished the most. And I love being on that show. Let me tell you, that show was one of the best ones I appear on when we talk about basketball, the real version of it, not the patty cake baker's man version of it.
Patty cake 3-point shots.
Kudos to the Lakers having their first win of the season last night.
I wanted to see them go 0-82. If you're listening, LeBron, we don't like you.
LeBum.
No, you're right, Scott. You're right, Scott. Back in the day, what a great NBA it used to be.
It did.
Yes.
Before they took away the hand check.
Today, I think yesterday was the anniversary of the highest scoring basketball game in basketball history. Pistons beat the Nuggets.
Too,
Pistons and the Nuggets. Yep.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Wasn't that when the Nuggets had AI still?
No. This was in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no,
186 to 184 or something.
Yeah, I will say this was a heck of a topic on yesterday's edition of Basket Bros, where Denzel Snipes, myself, Jacob Krishner, we had a really, and Will Vogel talked about. We had a really good time talking about it.
Oh.
We did. It was one of we do a lot of great
shows. So the show's at what, 7:30, 8? I could have been on the show because I was standing in line for 2 hours trying to get into a concert. But the Wi-Fi was garbage too, so I really couldn't have. Had I known that and I could have got the Wi-Fi password, I could have stood in line and it wasn't loud. But yeah.
Well,
I'll be back next week.
That was a good episode. So all right, so let's, as we button this thing up, just immediately after Fire Up Michigan will be Fire Up. Myself and Mark Mancini are going to just duke it out for 30 to 40 minutes. And last week on Fire Up, Eric Katz went at Mark Mancini and slapped him around. You're talking about an old guy versus a new guy. And Mark held his own, but Eric's got a little bit of he's a pistol out there. If you've ever worked on him, he has. So, but I decided to change the format a little bit with just Mark and I. I think it's going to be good. Where you have two of us going at it, and it'll be a fun show. I'm looking forward to trying different formats with different shows to make them interesting. So immediately after Fire Michigan, we'll be Fire Up with myself and Mark Mancini. So you know what? All I'll say about the Pistons, kudos to the Pistons for beating the Warriors. And one of these days, I would love to see Draymond Green play for the Pistons. I think it would be pretty neat.
Like the year after they won their first title and they almost came here.
Yeah.
Draymond Green then was the foundation of the new bad boys.
Right. I would love to see it. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Will Vogel says, I want George and Jeremy as guests eventually on Basket Bros.
Be happy to take up that challenge when and if it did.
Come on.
Send me a link. I'm good. If you have to, send it through Dom.
I was going to say, I told you 10 times before, you want to come on, come on.
Jeremy, we'll see if we can work on that. I'd love to have George and I on the same episode with the history we would bring to that show.
Oh
That
yeah.
would be interesting. And we'll get Jeremy. We always got places.
It's a show made for old heads like all of us.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm the youngest one, and I'm not young.
Yeah.
All right, so closing
I
it
was,
out.
I was at the Silverdome for a lot of those 170-point games for the Pistons.
Oh yeah.
A crappy football stadium
Yeah.
with half the seats blocked off for basketball.
Question for the panel: is anybody scared of Green Bay this coming weekend?
No,
No.
no,
No.
absolutely not.
I mean,
Sweeping
it
them.
looks like
Sweeping the Packers, swept by the Bears.
it
Yeah,
looks like the only person we have to worry about that has any chemistry with Aaron Rodgers whatsoever is Romeo Dobbs.
We can't stop the run, and Aaron Jones looked pretty good yesterday.
Well, the only thing I'll say about the Green Bay Lions game is my other half is a Packers girl, and I'm a Lions guy. So,
divorce her.
Oh, it's a house divided.
Yeah.
You
I
have to
want
wear
a camera in there.
You have to wear Packers gear for the reverse juju.
It happens twice a year, so it is a very interesting time with her and I. But ironically, the Bucks are playing the Pistons tonight. So with that said, okay, any final thoughts? And I mean final thoughts, so we don't talk over one another on this thing here about the Pistons and the Warriors, one at a time. Jeremy.
Kudos to them. 4 guys over 20, 5 guys in double digits. Good job.
Okay, George.
Surprisingly, the Pistons are selling a lot of tickets this year. At least we're told on paper. It was not a complete sellout, but darn near close. So the fans are coming back. They like to see the youth movement, and I got to congratulate the Pistons for, doing that. It was long overdue to overhaul that roster. So kudos to them.
Okay, Dom.
Kudos on the win. Like I said, it's more frustrating than anything. George is lying about the tickets. Art Van is on their 3rd set of black seat covers that they put on all those red seats because those stick out like sore red thumbs. But the sad thing is, they won 20 games 2 years ago. They won 23 or 24 last year. Even if we win 30 this year, I don't think Dwayne Casey is the guy. You gotta, unless he's gonna start coaching defense, which he doesn't, just fire him. Honestly, fire him now.
Okay. All right, let me go over some other information about the company. Subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel or visit www.southfloridatribune.com and advertise. Call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us at Tribune South. Also, if you have difficulty finding the South Florida Tribune on our website, just go to youtube.com, look for South Florida Tribune, and you can subscribe that way. Really good show by all you guys. I really feel like we covered a lot of interesting bases, so to speak. Next week, we're going to be talking about the Detroit Tigers, what we're going to do. And they've made a lot of changes in their front office. We'll get into more of that. Right now, we have to roll with the fact that you had a very busy weekend with the Dolphins and the Lions, where I'm on the media distribution list for both sides. And, I love the Wolverines. I make no bounds about it. I'm pro Wolverine as well. So all you guys did a really good job. And you know what? The only good thing that happened, if you're a Spartan, was Kenneth Walker III having a really good game against the New York Giants. But we'll leave it at that. So with that said, Jeremy, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
You can follow me through the southfloridatribune.com under Motor City Tribune. I'm under the list of authors there. I post all my articles. I also have Kneecap Biting with Smoking Jeremy B, which is my YouTube channel. And you can also find me on Motor City Kneecap Biters on Facebook.
Well done. Okay, George Eichhorn, you got a book to promote.
Yeah, I wrote a book.
Hold on one second. We're going to let Dom go ahead and do his thing because yours will take a little bit longer.
I think I'm going to be long-winded. I'm not. Mondays here. When the NBA, well, no, it already started. After the first of the year, the NBA carousel. Tuesdays, nothing. Wednesdays with Jeremy. That's our NFL roundtable. Thursdays, that's the sip off when we start back up. That's Alex Fleming's NFL carousel. Fridays is myself and Jeremy and some of our Lions cohorts for the NFL Man Cave. Also, the Gauntlet. Saturdays off, Sundays Basket Bros.
Very
George.
good. All right, George.
Take it away, sir.
I'll tell you, the schedule of these guys, Scott, all you guys, unbelievable. Hey, yeah, I authored a book on Detroit sports broadcasting on the air, and it chronicles guys like Ernie Harwell and Frank Beckman and George Blaha, Bud Lynch, Bruce Martin, Mickey Redmond, and the rest of them. And Scott Morgan.
Mickey Redmond is a drunk.
Scott is in there, and he's featured with Muhammad Ali and Jimmy Connors. You can get the book. There's a link on the website, South Florida Tribune and the Motor City Tribune, which I also write for. You'll see a link there to get a copy of the book, and you can reach me at SandGSports99 and also gicorn@yahoo.com. And also I'm on whatever that's called, LinkedIn, under George Icorn. Send me a note. Buy a book.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? This is one of those books which is an easy read because there's more pictures, so more power to you. When you have pictures of the legends, that's all that matters. I do want, before we close out the show tonight, I hope everybody is having a happy and safe Halloween out there. And also a special shout out to Candy Ebeling. Without her posting the written content up there on the broadcast, we would have a very difficult time putting this production together. So Candy, she's getting some airtime on lots of shows.
Thank you, Candy.
Thank you, Candy.
We don't hold your Green Bay fandom against you, but you have to wear Lions gear this week.
Oh, yeah.
I won't.
I'm going to send you a personal picture with my next article of Sauce Gardner wearing his cheese head as the Jets walked off with their win.
The only chance you got getting Candy and Lions attire is you got to Photoshop her up. That's as far as you're going to go. No, but she does a whale of a job, and she's got some airtime on Sideline Sports, too. She's got some shows out there.
Oh, we see you, Candy, on Three Chicks.
Yeah, you get 3 chicks in pot, chips and salsa, and now her and Jennifer are even talking about doing one between them. I support anything those ladies do. They're great people. So, so more power to them. I love working with JB Ellis, John Shearer, Eric Wilson, Jake Malik, and the rest of you guys.
You like working with John Shearer? You're the only one.
Oh, yeah, I've only been out with him a couple of times. The way he treats me is a little different.
Kidding. We love you, John Shearer.
JB, call me.
Yeah, John Shearer's good peeps. Hey, listen, he helped me get over the nervousness of dealing with StreamYard. So he brought me.
He's a Dolphins fan. Poor bastard.
Have you figured out how to post up the comments on the screen yet?
Have I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just
did it before.
I've done it before. Right now,
okay.
I'm interested in learning how to do it. But yeah, I should. You know what though? What we'll do is let's see. There we go.
Hey, there we go. That makes it a lot easier to read because that's really tiny writing on my screen.
I can't even see them. I don't have the YouTube pulled up.
For those of you that are watching it, we'll make it happen on Basket Bros, bro. Okay. All right. So coming up after Fire Up Michigan, we have Fire Up with myself and Mark Mancini. So we'll be on very, very shortly. So on behalf of Smoking Jeremy B and Dom, whatever he writes on his screen every single week, and of course, George Icorn, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Fire Up Michigan, and we'll do it again next week. And as I said in advance, we're going to be talking a lot of Tigers, and we'll see what else comes up on the radar. But this will be a Tigers-oriented show. So, meanwhile, there you go, George.
It's time for my funny line, but I'm going to change it this week.
Give the Phillies fans the finger, didn't
the man without a World Series win. Go, JV.
All right. I want to say something because we said it at the end last week when we caught you by surprise, but I'm changing it for a certain fan base. Spade and neuter your Packer fans.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So now we got to go ahead and take – we have to go ahead and take Jeremy B and call him Jeremy Bob Barker. Is that what we got to do?
Jeremy Bob.
Or Betty White.
No, I like Bob Barker because he does that neutered pets business on The Price is Right. So. I don't know. I'm going to have to go ahead and think about that one. You're going to ever come up with that neutered thing on here, we got to give you a nickname. So
okay.
I got a week to figure that one out. But meanwhile, great show by you guys tonight. I don't expect anything less than that anyways on you guys. So with that said, we'll do it again next week. Great job, guys and fans out there. If you like this show, please share it to your friends and family. We really appreciate you helping us as much as we can. We enjoy bringing you the content, comment, whatever you want to do. Without you fans out there, to me, it's really not worth it anyways, because we do this not only to have fun on our own, but we want to make sure you become educated and informed as well. And I do the best I can to put together the best crew I can on every single broadcast that we do. So once again, this is my crew, and we'll say goodbye to you for at least another week on Fire Up Michigan. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, Canada.